When you buy a piece of property, you think you're just buying the land or the house, right? But what you're really buying is a whole set of legal rights. And how you actually hold those rights, the way your name is written on that deed, is every bit as important as the property itself. It decides everything: who's in charge, who gets it when you're gone, and who's on the hook for what. So let's unpack what this really means. So, are you thinking about buying a house with someone? Maybe your partner, a buddy, a family member? It's a huge, exciting step. But that fine print on the deed, the specific way you take the title, can have massive, and I mean massive, consequences down the road. We're talking about inheritance, debt, even your ability to sell your share. This isn't just boring paperwork, it's literally the blueprint for your entire co-ownership. All right, here's what we're going to cover. First up, we'll look at the big choice: owning by yourself versus owning with other people. Then, we're going to explore the two main roads you can take when you co-own property. After that, we get to the really critical part, the survivorship showdown, which is all about what happens when an owner passes away. We'll also touch on a special exception just for married couples. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the key things you need to remember. Okay, let's dive right in at square one. The very first decision, the one that sets the stage for everything else, is simple. Are you flying solo on this, or are you sharing ownership? So on one side, you have what's called separate ownership, or the legal term is ownership in severalty. Now that sounds kind of strange, right? But it just comes from the word severed, meaning it's completely severed from any other owner. It's all you. You have total control. Then on the other side, you've got concurrent ownership. That's when two or more people share the title. And this is where things start to get really interesting. So when you go in on a property with someone else, you're usually faced with two main choices. They might sound kind of similar: tenancy in common and joint tenancy. But believe me, in the eyes of the law, they are worlds apart. You can really think about this as two different philosophies of ownership. Tenancy in common is all about being flexible and independent. Your share is your own, to do with whatever you want. Joint tenancy, on the other hand, is all about being unified and automatic. You and your co-owners are essentially treated like one single unit. Okay, let's zoom in on tenancy in common. With this setup, co-owners have their own individual interests. And here's what's so important: those shares can be unequal. You could own 70% while your partner owns 30%. And here's the key part: when a tenant in common dies, their share goes to whoever they put in their will. It does not automatically go to the other owners. Now, joint tenancy, it's a whole different ballgame. Way more strict. Every single owner must have an equal share of the property. And for it to even be a valid joint tenancy, it has to meet 4 very specific conditions, which are known as the 4 unities. So to make a joint tenancy work, you've got to check these 4 boxes. All owners have to get their interest at the same time, from the same title document. They must have the exact same interest, meaning equal shares, and they all have to have an equal right to possess the whole property. Break just one of these, and the whole joint tenancy can fall apart. Okay, so we've got the definitions down, but now we're getting to the real heart of the matter, the absolute biggest difference between these two. It's all about what happens when one of the co-owners dies, and trust me, this is where it gets serious. The single defining feature, the magic ingredient of a joint tenancy, is something called the right of survivorship. And this one little phrase, well, it changes absolutely everything. Okay, look at this. It really lays it all out. With joint tenancy, if an owner passes away, their share automatically zips over to the other owners. It doesn't even look at their will. And because of that, it completely sidesteps probate court, which, if you don't know, is a huge, huge deal. It can save your loved ones years of legal headaches and a ton of money. Plus, the property usually passes free from the deceased personal debts. Now, with tenancy in common, it's the total opposite. The share goes to the heirs in the will, it has to go through probate, and those heirs might even inherit debt along with the property. Big difference, right? So can you get out of this rigid structure? Yeah, you totally can. Any joint tenant can sell their share, and this action is called severance. So let's use this example. You've got A, B, and C as joint tenants. A decides to sell their piece to a new person, D. Well, that breaks the 4 unities for D. So what happens? B and C are still joint tenants with each other for their combined 2/3 share, but D is now a tenant in common with them. The whole legal structure has changed. All right, now let's throw a little curveball in here. For married folks, some states have a completely different way of doing things. It's a special category called community property, and it can override everything else. Community property is a concept that basically says anything you and your spouse acquire during the marriage belongs to both of you 50-50. It's considered the property of the community, the marriage itself. It doesn't matter whose paycheck actually paid for it. So, how does inheritance work here? It's pretty interesting. If you have a will, you can actually give your half of the community property to anyone you want, your kids, a charity, whoever. But here's the catch. If you die without a will, what lawyers call dying intestate, then your half automatically goes to your surviving spouse. No questions asked. But of course, not everything a married person owns is community property. There are some big exceptions. Like anything you owned before you got married, that's still just yours. Same with anything you get as a specific gift or an inheritance during the marriage. That's all considered your own separate property. Okay, wow, we have covered a ton of ground here, from the four unities to the right of survivorship. So let's just boil this all down. What are the key things you absolutely need to remember when you're thinking about which path to take? So here's the bottom line. You go with tenancy in common when you want flexibility, when you want the freedom to pass your specific share onto your chosen heirs. You choose joint tenancy when the main goal is for the other owners to get the property automatically. And you definitely want to skip probate court. And if you're married in a community property state, that's going to be your default, and it comes with its own special set of rules. In the end, how you hold title to a property, it's not just some legal term on a piece of paper. It's really a story. It's a story about your relationships, what you intend for the future, and what you want your legacy to be. So I'll leave you with this question. When it comes to your property, what story do you want your title to tell?